Hello, friends. Welcome to Love Wrestling Sunday Brunch. It is January 24th, 2021. As always, I am your host, your curator, your manager, your whatever you want to call me for today's edition. Spencer Love, thanks once again for tuning in, friends. I am lovingly joined, as always, by a couple of our content creators for a lot of C's in this week's edition of Sunday Brunch, and a good friend of mine, a good friend of my previous shows, my future shows, and one of Winnipeg's finest professional wrestlers in this man's humble opinion, Leo London. I'm going to start with you, my friend. How are you doing? And of course, for anybody who may not have had the chance to listen to you do previous interviews with me, or unfortunately haven't watched you wrestle, maybe just give a 1 minute or less bio on Leo London.
I'm Leo London. I'm based out of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I've wrestled all across Western Canada. I started in 2010. I'm a more, let's say, technical style of a wrestler. Yeah. I've wrestled Steve Carino, Mike Quackenbush, Colt Cabana, whole bunch of who's. I've pinned the IWGP heavyweight champion while he was the champion. Yeah, big deal.
F Kenny Omega. I'll be the one to say it right off the bat. Kyle Shaw in the chat saying, holy cow, Leo London solid. I couldn't agree more, friend. I'm very, very happy to have him here. We were a long time overdue for just having a simple shooting the shit session between the two of us. And I'm lucky that you got to join us for more than just shooting the shit with myself. Parrish, how are you doing, man? How are things on your end of things?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm finalizing the newly talked about Love Wrestling gear that I'm making. So, yeah, that's all paid for. It's getting made as we speak. So it's pretty exciting time. So I can't wait for this pandemic to. So yeah, how are you?
Self-censorship. I appreciate it. That's not usually something you hold yourself to. I'm doing well, man. I'm very excited on my end. Mighty Joe Moore, things on your end of Canada, man. How are you doing?
Hey, they're doing not too bad. We've been really lucky when it comes to weather in our area here in Southern Ontario and Canada that we haven't had much in the way of snow. Still dealing with COVID, obviously. But, I mean, there's lots going on in wrestling. Royal Rumble coming up soon. Lots going on in New Japan. Lots going on. Turnbuckle Talk, Turnbuckle Rewind. It's a fun time to be a wrestling fan and an observer of wrestling and somebody who podcasts about wrestling. It's a great time, my friend.
I couldn't agree more. And if you guys want to stay up to date with the latest and greatest from Mighty Joe on Turnbuckle Talk, Turnbuckle Rewind, whatever Parrish is going to get up to in the future here, including the POS show with myself, any of the interviews I've got coming up, including one with Leo London here in the near future. Follow us, like us, subscribe, give us a share, a review, a retweet, whatever you can do, however you choose to support. It always helps us continue to bring you great content from great individuals like the people you see here. As our friend from Wrestling Plug Inc. says in the comments, he ties us in nicely. Number one, he says, have a killer show, guys. I think we've got one lined up for you. We've got a lot of exclusives coming your way, some previews of what you can expect in the next week. And as he alludes to in his next comment, it's Rumble Week. It's my favorite time in professional wrestling, in any promotion, in anything, anywhere. You guys know my bias as far as it goes. The Rumble's my favorite match. Now that we get at least two of them every year, it's absolutely fantastic. Mighty Joe, you're raising your hand pretty immediately. Your thoughts going into this year's Rumble 1 week out before the event?
I'm right there with you, Spencer. The Royal Rumble, at least in WWE, is still my favorite match, my favorite event throughout the year. I mean, I've watched every single one since I can remember, and it's just great because there's usually some surprises, and I'm typically not a fan of really gimmicky wrestling matches, but an over the top Royal Rumble match with some of my favorite WWE guys plus some surprises. What's not to like?
Absolutely. Leo, yourself, Royal Rumble season, what are your thoughts heading into it this year?
I think I've only seen two in their entirety.
We got a lot of ends of the spectrum here.
Yeah, I'm not it's not that I don't like it or anything. It's just WWE has a very large back catalog to go through, and I just haven't had the time or opportunity to really sit and focus and watch them all. I know some people marathon them every year, and I just can't do that. But I think
no,
I saw Shinsuke win, and then I saw the year everybody didn't want Roman Reigns to win because Daniel Bryan wasn't in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Roman Reigns is not Daniel Bryan, and so they turned on him.
This
It
just
did Rey
in.
Mysterio that year.
Man, it takes some incredible. It's still like kind of semi-surreal to me that, like you said, Leo, like the fact that Rey Mysterio got booed in WWE, I quite literally, and maybe someone will fact check me on this, rightfully so. I can't find a time in that guy's career where he worked heel or like the intention was ever to get booed. I think that's why it's maybe still so jarring to me that like it actually happened.
Yeah.
Parrish, your
They were
thoughts
pretty
heading
pissed
into
off that Daniel Bryan wasn't around.
well, and can you blame him? I mean, again, it's still shocking, like when you consider it's Rey Mysterio, but when you talk about the proverbial listen to the fans, quote unquote, and use all those old cliche that we as wrestling fans throw at professional wrestling, that was one of those times that even for myself, it was kind of baffling that you wouldn't at least have him in there, right? Armin Tasmirin hopping into the chat here saying wrestling and breakfast beers can't beat it. Technically, it's brunch. We are very specific in our advertising here. Breakfast beers are not something we condone. It's too early for those. That's why we wait until at least 11 a.m. to do these, because liquor stores are open and we can consider calling this a brunch realistically.
It's 1 p.m. where I'm at, okay? It's 1 p.m., so we're good there. All right.
Yeah,
It's always 5 o'clock somewhere, Spencer. Come on.
Well, fair enough. Parrish, I haven't asked you yet, man. How are you feeling heading into the 2021 Royal Rumble? It's going to be a different one this year, as we talked about a little bit last week, with no fans in attendance. WWE, at least it's been reported, has confirmed that there won't be fans at the Rumble this year. How do you think that's going to affect the experience?
I think the live reaction on if there's going to be a surprise here or there, it's going to take away from that, just because it's like firing a gun without the bang. And that's kind of like my analogy on that one. It's one thing if you can see the shot. It's another thing to hear it as well. Because we talk about like WWE always being about the moments. Well, the crowd is very much a part of that moment. So I think it's going to affect it. However, I think the more interactiveness you can have, and that's why I think the Thunderdome is doing such a great job of still bringing in people. If they can do something like that and really capitalize on the interactiveness with the fans, I think that's the best way WWE can do to save those moments, really staying those true iconic moments. And that's kind of what I feel this Rumble may not have, is iconic moments just because of the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can't really blame them. Of course, if you guys are in the chat room, let us know your thoughts on the Rumble, any aspects of it, whether it's your favorite matches, who you think's going to win, who you think's primed for a great performance, anything along those lines. We're happy to chat. That's what we're here for on Sunday Brunch. However, our first question in the chat room comes from our friend Kyle Shaw, the Canadian Goose. Honk, honk, honk. Remember, you guys can get his T-shirts on ProWrestlingTees.com. He hops in for a question for Leo London and Chris Parrish. He says, the Rumble is my favorite WWE show of the year. Have you fellas been in any indie Rumbles and any good stories? Now, Joe, I should actually like caveat there off the bat. I don't know if you've been in any indie Rumbles. I don't know if you've wrestled, but speaking for myself, Shaw, no, not a chance.
Leo,
I have not wrestled in an independent Rumble. I have not.
So I was correct. The question is for Leo and Parrish. Leo, you're the guest. We'll let you tackle that one first.
So I have been in a few, and I do have a funny story about one. So there was a wrestler who had booked a Rumble like very poorly, and it went so poorly that a very large man named Outlaw Adam Knight decided that without being booked in the Rumble, he was going to go in the Rumble and throw everybody over the top rope. Now, just as he decides this, I am at the curtain, and my number's about to get called. And I went like, oh, I want no part of this. And I come out, I run towards the ring, I slide in one side, and without even standing up, I just go out the other side and just walk to the back. And then Adam Knight comes in and just starts hitting people, throwing people who had, let's just say they were not equipped to be in the ring at all. Never mind, like in a really, Rumbles are actually very complicated, trying to remember who goes in, out when, and like being aware of so many bodies in the ring, all these other things that play in that aren't necessarily part of a normal match. And these guys were just not leaving. And yeah, Knight wasn't happy about it. So he went in, cleared everybody out, and then he just looked at somebody he trusted. I think it was actually David London. And he's just like, okay, throw me. And then David threw him against the rope and he took himself out and went to the back.
I'm gonna have to FedEx that guy a beer for that. That's fantastic. Parrish.
He still actually is the loser of a bet we made that he still won't actually do. We bet one year on the Oilers and the Jets and who would be better, and that was the year the Oilers went to the playoffs. So yeah, still wear an Oilers jersey at a Jets game. So Adam, I'm calling you out for being a little bitch.
I wouldn't be doing that if I'm throwing literally everybody out of a Rumble match. Maybe it's my experience and lack thereof of being in a wrestling match, but that just sounds like absolutely no fun for me. Before we get to you, I've actually got to give a quick shout out as well to Armin, who agrees with your point. The reactions of the fans will be missed in this year's Rumble. I agree with that 100%. The only caveat that I'll make to that is actually as well in agreement with Parrish, in that I think that the Thunderdome has done much better than even I expected. You hear sometimes even when wrestling promotions like pipe in crowd noise and it's evident and it sounds fake and all of that. Like, I don't really think that's been too big of a problem for the Thunderdome. And I think, like, you know, conversely, they've done a really, really great job of, even though everybody knows it is fake, making it sound real.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many like surprise entrants or stuff like that or anything like that will be affected, but I do have a bit of hope still that it won't be as bad as people are sort of thinking with it.
Yeah. I kind of hope they keep it within the realm of their company in terms of the surprises as much as they can, and they kind of just be creative, because I think that's the one thing we miss about WWE is their creativeness, and they have a lot to be creative about. But at the same time, there's so many guys that you can think about. Hey, if WWE picked up these guys, it's perfect timing. Let's do it up. But to answer Shaw's question about the Rumbles, I've been in about 7 different Rumbles, and one of my favorites was I was part of the Cauliflower Alley Club's proverbial 50. I think 7-man Royal Rumble, where every entrant came out to an instrumental version of Rebel Yell, which was absolutely awesome when you first hear it, because you're like, yeah, this song's awesome. And then 2 hours later, when they're still playing it, you're like, I'm sick of this song. And of course, as soon as the show's done and you go downstairs into the casino area, and what's the song that's playing? Rebel Yell. And you're just like, yeah, thank God beer's cheap in Vegas. Because it was so annoying. But at the same time, like, I got to be in the ring with like guys like Gangrel. Even Bobby Sharp was in there, and it was actually really fun because this is the first time I'm wrestling outside of Canada, and I look over and one of my best friends and Bobby Sharp's there. So I mean, it was actually really fun because as much respect I have for that guy, the fact that he was the only guy who was like, hey man, hit the parachute on me, get your shit over. And it was like, it was very nice. But I mean, Pure Power Wrestling out in Lethbridge, they hold an annual show called the Power Rumble. And it's really fun. Last year, right before the pandemic, I made my kind of edge moment, as you can say, because I was gone for a year with my broken kneecap. So I made a surprise entrant, and it was pretty fun. So, I mean, I think those are the most fun matches you can possibly have if the situation is aligned with it. If it's not, those matches are a complete oblivion. What's the right word? It's really, a shit show, to be honest, if it's not right. I mean, it might be a POS show, if I do say so myself.
You could also call it a clusterfuck, which I do have to rightfully point out that, speaking of great Rumble moments as a fan, at the very least, one of my favorite Rumble moments as far as indie events goes was watching Kyle Shaw, the Canadian Goose, honk honk honk, win the clusterfuck battle royal at the Clandestine Society show, just laying Tex Gaines out with a beautiful punch. It was an absolute blast for me. We're going to take a quick 1.5-minute break here. We're going to continue on the theme of exclusive Royal Rumbles after Mighty Joe Morin gets his point in, because I know he's got one to make. So we're going to hear from Mighty Joe real quick, and then we're going to hear from Josh Robinson, who, of course, he's Australian. It's about 4 in the morning there. It's too early for even breakfast, nonetheless, brunch. So he's got a quick little shout from his upcoming content on Network and Chill. And then we're going to continue talking about our favorite Rumble moments, favorite Rumble matches, and so on and so forth right here on Sunday Brunch. Joe, what do you got for us before we take her to commercial?
I have a good one that you're going to appreciate, Spencer. Here in Brantford, Ontario, I haven't seen a lot of independent shows. It's been quite a while, but I did get a chance to see one here. The local promotion here is called MCW, or Magnificent Championship Wrestling, and they did a somewhat of a Royal Rumble match, and a very cool appearance from Mr. Cody Deaner showed up to be involved in that match, and like completely out of it literally was not advertised, did not expect it. It was really cool to just be literally down the street from my house, sitting watching an independent wrestling match, and having Cody Deaner show up out of nowhere. That was pretty damn cool. It's pretty special to witness.
Very, very cool, man. And yet another endorsement of why you guys should support your local independent wrestling promotions, wherever you may be. If you're lucky enough to be in Canada, then you may get to see some of these fine individuals live and in the flesh. If you guys are anywhere, though, and you've got a local indie within driving distance, get there, support them, because these are the stars of tomorrow. And you could be lucky enough to see guys like Cody Deaner, who I've been lucky enough to chat with, who Joe was lucky enough to see, and you guys can check out right here on Love Wrestling at any time. However, we're not going to show you an exclusive from an upcoming interview yet. Like I mentioned, we're going to get to some clips from Josh Robinson's upcoming Royal Rumble special. Stick around for about a minute and a half through that, and we'll be right back.
The fact that it's Rumble season, the fact that it's, again, both of I can speak for you here and say it's just our favorite time, because even the worst Rumbles are still a Rumble, and I'd still probably take a bad Rumble over a lot of other stuff. So I'm pretty interested, and I thought the best way that we can get ourselves hyped for the 2021 Royal Rumble is go back to 2020 and watch the Women's Royal Rumble from last year, because I think, now I know that this will be a little bit of a hot take, the 2020 Rumble as a pure wrestling match is the best Women's Royal Rumble there has been, in my opinion. I think that I love the first one. I would agree with you. The first one is nostalgic, and the first one is, we're here, we're doing this. It could have been the literal worst match in the world, and I wouldn't have cared, because it wasn't about that. It was about, like, this is happening. Holy crap. And then the kind of second one was about Becky's rise, and we knew that was for Becky. I can kind of say that pretty certainly. Going into this one, while there was a group at the top that we thought were going to win, it was a little more unpredictable, I would say.
I would say as well. That's why I was happy to join buddy Josh Robinson on Network and Chill. Him and I sat and watched the 2020 Women's Royal Rumble. And as he mentioned, it was unpredictable. There really isn't a better word to describe it, you know. The first couple of years, there were maybe one or two contenders, especially with 2019. There really was only one clear choice for a lot of professional wrestling fans out there. But last year, you could have literally like thrown a dart at the women's roster and could have made a great case for any of them winning. I do want to touch on favorite Royal Rumbles. Favorite Royal Rumble returns in a second here, because I think it's a great conversation to have coming out of that clip. But we're going to answer a question here from our friend Armin first, because speaking of surprise entrances at the Rumble, what's one that comes to your guys' mind? For me, I was thinking the 3 Faces of Foley. Well, you said one surprise entrance, and that was 3. So, Armin, you disqualified your own question already, buddy. No, just pulling your leg, man. I think it's a great question. It's one that I'm going to start Mighty Joe Morin with. Give me one or two of your favorite surprise entrances, or maybe most shocking, even if they weren't some of your personal favorites.
One of my recent personal favorites has to be going back to 2016. After Roman Reigns had just thrown out Mr. I'm thinking the name escapes me. Miro, who's now in Rusev. Yes, thank you, Parrish. And I just remember just Roman being in the ring and that music dropping, and I was just sitting there going, okay, I don't know what that music is. And then AJ Styles comes out to one of the best pops that I had heard in quite a long time. And I think, even backstage, I think he exceeded everybody's expectations for the reaction that he got from the audience there. That was pretty damn incredible.
I even think, and if memory serves me correctly, because so much shit comes up on Twitter, admittedly, but I believe that today is actually the 5-year anniversary of that debut, which is just nuts to think because, like, for so many years, like, he was a guy that, much like Sting, you just never thought, at least for me, was going to go to WWE. It was like just outlandish to even think of. Unlike 99% of professional wrestlers, you know, it's always going to be WWE. But like him, even Samoa Joe for me was pretty shocking. But like AJ Styles was right up there as far as no, you're never going to see it, and we'd accepted it by that point, you know?
Absolutely.
Parrish, some of your favorite surprise entrances or most shocking returns of all time?
I think for me, some of the big ones that I didn't expect is when we saw Kevin Nash come back as Diesel. Like, I think that one was just absolutely like mind blowing. Not because I'm not even that big of a fan of Diesel, but like one, I just never thought I'd ever see Kevin Nash portray that character again, and I think that was like a great moment for that. I go back to one of the ones that I'm still to this day completely shocked that it happened. And that's in 2008, I believe. John Cena coming back from a torn pectoral muscle, I think like 4 months after he does it. And he doesn't even miss a beat. And that was absolutely impressive on so many accounts. I know exactly which one you're going to say, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I also love when Chris Jericho came back at number 2, because if we talk about pops, man, I don't know if you can get a bigger pop at a Rumble than when you break the walls down after Ziggler ran his mouth after getting number 1. So I'm gonna go with that. But yeah, like I mean, it's the Rumble, man. Like any countdown, surprise music, and I'm all in.
Exactly, man. Leo, before we hop on to you, we've got Kevin Faber in the chat who makes his cases for Styles' debut and Edge's return. I think it's pretty difficult to even to argue that Edge is the greatest of all time, to be honest. And maybe it's just like everybody's got like their personal loves, you know what I mean? And for me, the circumstances, you and I were watching it together, Parrish, sitting at Beercade, watching the Rumble, like, will he return? Will he return? And then his music hits, like, everybody's got their personal reasons. And for me, like, that's got to be the greatest return of all time. There's very, very little doubt in my mind. Leo, let's hop back onto Armin's question, however, and let's get your answer to some of your favorite surprise returns in your Rumble opinions.
Well, I didn't get to see them as they happened, most of them, but I was going to say John Cena's return just because of his reaction. And at that point, like, it wasn't cool to like John Cena yet. They were still crapping on him. And that just proves that, like, even when it was cool to crap on him, whether you want to admit it or not, you missed John Cena being around. And it was really great.
It was in Madison Square Garden too, by the way. Like the most harsh of crowds.
Yeah.
Like that, just to add to that point.
Yeah.
The Titantron that opens like doors, that's crazy cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I miss sets like that.
Yeah.
That's why I loved WrestleMania 10 too, just because of that entrance. And like, yes, you probably limited the amount of people at the shows with those, but man, that was one of the coolest get-ups at his first stage. Is just when they did that. So
yeah. Now the couple that I've gotten, my heart,
no mercy stages.
My heart.
Yeah.
And of course, if we're talking, and I know it's not a pay-per-view set, but if we're going to throw some love to some sets out there, the SmackDown fist just has to be brought up. It just has to be. We're doing a disservice to professional wrestling if we don't bring the SmackDown fist up. A couple of shout-outs that I want to make as far as surprise Rumble returns recently. And it is just my bias. They're fresh on mine because we went through and, as mentioned, watched the Rumble with Josh for 2020. Last year's men's Rumble when MVP returned, I want to give that just some quick love because nobody saw it coming. Nobody talked about it. And again, maybe even for myself, it wasn't as hyped because obviously Edge coming back and all of that, you sort of get the law of diminishing returns, for lack of a better way to put it. But I absolutely loved it. And the run that he's gone on, like, everybody's made the pun. It's not to make a joke, but like he has definitely been one of the MVPs of the crowdless era as far as the work he's put in for Monday Night Raw and WWE. And then I wanted to shout out because it was such a fun moment for me in last year's Women's Rumble Mighty Molly making her return was just fantastic. People talk about Rumbles having everything in them, and I think that breaking up a match in some way, shape, or form with something that makes people laugh or makes people gasp, I guess, in a way that's not, a return or not a return, a shocking elimination or sort of your more traditional ways, you've got to give people that laugh. And it would have been very easy for Molly Holly to just come back as Molly Holly and be the world beater that she is, and she was in her return. But just hearing Mighty Molly's music and seeing her come out and hit the Mighty Molly pose, I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. Kyle Shaw, got to give a shout out. What about Drew Carey? Yeah, Drew Carey. What was that? Was that the 98 Rumble?
That was
So
2002, I think.
Man, numbers are hard around then for me. I can't lie. I wasn't same as Leo was, really. I wasn't watching Rumbles consistently or even wrestling consistently
I
at that
actually
point.
just watched that Rumble not too long ago because I remember Kerry was doing like a comedy special in town, and he wanted to get some advice from Vince, who caught him like trying to hit on Trish. And then he's like, "Oh, here's an idea. You just go in the Rumble. It'll be safe and it'll get you great publicity." And then he gets in as the Hardys kind of like get each other out. And then all of a sudden he's in there dancing, and then Kane comes in, and then he's like, "Yeah, well, there's poo in my pants. I'm getting the hell out of here."
It was fantastic, man. I was having a conversation with somebody, I can't remember who
Kane
the other day,
lasted
but
like
just
an
on
hour. Kane lasted like an hour in a Rumble and was absolutely amazing. He might actually go in as the most underappreciated, best Rumble participant ever.
maybe. But you know what? Like I've always hated the cliche because they always apply it to the big show of like, oh my God, he's massive. He has to be the favorite to win. And like never has.
Never
has. Right? Kane, I don't believe has won a Royal Rumble. I could be wrong there, but I don't.
No, he lost to Austin in the finals in that year.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So I just love it because it's one of those things that you just hear literally every year. I'm sure you're going to hear it this year when Braun Strowman makes his entrance or whatever. And let's just make it clear, because Braun Strowman has won a Rumble. If he ain't defending the greatest Royal Rumble title, he ain't won that Rumble as far as I'm concerned.
I have a good one that like we can't not mention. We're talking like Royal Rumble moments and whatnot. And honestly, the year and the number escapes me, but it's beside the point. When John Cena and Batista essentially eliminate themselves and land on the outside at the same time, and for Vince to come out and to literally tear both quads coming into the ring. I mean, who does that? Who does that?
Zach actually. Well, I'm not sure if you saw it, but Zach literally tweeted out a photo today that was like from the sort of undershot perspective, I guess, of like Vince sitting there in the ring with his legs out and
Could
Batista.
you just imagine the pain
Well,
that you're in, and it'd just be like, no, things are just fine. I'm just pissed off at what's happening to my legs.
Could you imagine though? Could you imagine trying to like show that photo to someone and trying to explain what happened to a non-wrestling fan?
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't believe you.
No,
they just wouldn't believe you.
I would love if Triple H paid like the production team just to throw that piece of footage in the hype for the Rumble, just as a rib to Vince. Like that would be the greatest thing. But before we move topics, shout out to a Canadian-born man who in 1 year entered the Rumble at number 10.
Yes.
Ty Dillinger was absolutely, I think, one of the guilty pleasure entrances.
Yeah.
Because who didn't like that? The next year, I think Sammy beat him up and took his spot, but it was great. Like, the pop was amazing. And then he came in and he looked amazing against, ironically enough, Spencer Braun Strowman.
Braun Strowman and Sami Zayn.
I thought worked surprisingly well together, too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've got one more from Leo, and then we're going to actually hop into another quick commercial break every 15 minutes. We want you guys to get the opportunity to refill your beverages, visit the desired facilities that you need to visit, whatever you need to do. So we're going to get Leo London to close out this segment of the show, and then we are going to hop into an exclusive for my upcoming interview with Shaul Guerrero right here on Love Wrestling. I tweeted one out earlier, but for tuning in today, you guys are going to get a double scoop, a double helping, another one. You're just going to get another one. So, Leo, you're going to close her out here for us. We're going to hop into that and then be back on Love Wrestling Sunday Brunch.
So one of the few I got to watch live was the Women's Royal Rumble when Alexa Bliss returned after like 6 months. And again, she's somebody that for some reason the internet has decided is really bad and should be hated for some reason, but they went crazy when her music hit and she came out.
Right.
And a banger theme, by the way.
No.
Absolutely, man. And like I will say too, like they did a really good job. It's a weird phrase, but like fiendizing or however her entrance right now, because I still think it's cool as shit. Alexa Bliss is I don't think underrated by any means. Now I understand how maybe people could like or dislike what she's doing more or less, you know what I mean? But like to sit and say she's not talented and that she's not good at what she does, like it's just wrong. There's just no other way to put it at this point. I think you're completely right there, Leo. We're going to hop into a commercial break, and then we're going to keep chatting here on Love Wrestling Sunday Brunch, the Royal Rumble edition. We're calling it, as I've improvised here recently. So stay tuned through the break. You're going to hear from Shaul Guerrero and her thoughts on Thunder Rosa. Yeah, and that sort of answers the question for me, but I was just going to ask on her influence on both you and just women's wrestling in general. It seems that luckily enough, the entire rest of the wrestling world caught up to where she was at and what her sort of, it's such a cliche, but like where her potential sort of finally hit, right? Because it seemed like over the last 6 months, everybody was talking about just how great she was. So how she sort of impacted you and what have you sort of seen her impact on the entire women's scene as a whole?
Honestly, like anybody that Rosa comes into contact with, she she's a light, like she makes everybody laugh. Like she has like she's just a goofball. And so like I love being around her whenever I can. But her work ethic, I think, has been one of the biggest influences on me, because obviously she's a fantastic wrestler and you know she just comes alive when she's in the ring or in front of the camera. And so I really feel very blessed that she has helped me, especially like with getting back. And, you know, I've had many a text with her and phone calls like, how do I do this? What am I doing? Like, what do I focus on and stuff like that? And she's like been so amazing with me. But honestly, just she leads by example. And so like everyone sees how she busts her ass. Everyone sees how she treats other people. And I'm like, I want to do that. I want to be that. I want to be a badass bitch just like that. And so like, honestly, I think she does that for me and for everybody. I think a lot of other wrestlers that she's kind of taken under her wing would say the same.
There you go, Shaul Guerrero on Thunder Rosa. You're going to get a lot of great thoughts from her this Friday on Love Wrestling. She's just a cool person to get to talk to, and at a very, very cool time in her career. She just stepped back into the ring for the first time. I believe it was December of last year, but either way, she's continuing to get back into the ring. She'll be wrestling for Flawless in February. She'll be wrestling for Mission Pro Wrestling this February, and we got a lot of cool stuff on everything outside of that as well. You know, being a Guerrero and the sort of pressures and the legacy that comes with having that last name. We talk about Brody Lee and lots of really good stuff and a lot of really heart-tugging stuff, for lack of a better way to put it. Just a very, very great conversation to get to have with such a multi-talented individual and someone that I'm very excited to bring you. I don't have a clip done up yet for it, so unfortunately, you guys are going to have to stay tuned to social media for this one. But I chatted with Steve Rivers, the All-American, a couple of days ago for Love Wrestling as well. That's going to be coming out tomorrow, so make sure you stay tuned to wherever you may be watching today, whether it's Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or any of our other social media platforms. Stay tuned for that one. A couple of great conversations coming your way. And Joe, I know that you've got some great stuff coming your way as well on Turnbuckle Rewind. So if you just want to let us know what you've got coming up next Thursday as well, right here on Love Wrestling. I say that a lot, but lots of great content coming up. It's a good problem to have.
Absolutely. And just before that, you know, I'm really looking forward to that interview with Shaul Guerrero. I mean, even if she has even just a minuscule amount of the talent that her dad has, I mean, wow. I mean, just it's gonna that'll just be incredible to watch. As for Turnbuckle Rewind, it's an interesting episode coming up this week. We're actually taking one half of episode 2 and one half of episode 3 to make this matchup here. We're going back to Wrestle Kingdom 10 with AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship. So that's going to be a fun match to break down. I can't wait.
I can't either, man. It's very, very exciting. Parrish hopping into the chat room because he knows that he can do so over the break. Another great moment in Royal Rumble history when Hurricane came in and tried to choke slam Austin and Triple H was fantastic. I want to touch on that real quickly because just favorite Royal Rumble moments, because WWE talks about and we talk about so often that it's all about moments. A lot of the time in professional wrestling as a whole, yeah, winners and losers do matter. But if you get a great return, you get something along those lines, that's sometimes all the better, right? So before we dive into that topic, I want to just give a quick shout out to Jamie Miller tuning into the chat. 2002 Triple H is his favorite return, or their favorite return, I would have to assume. Huge pop. Hell yeah. I love a good return from injury. It's just such a feel good for whoever may be involved, because when he got hurt, of course, Triple H was part of the 2-man power trip. Him and Steve Austin were going on like literally what was supposed to be one of the defining moments of Steve Austin's heel run. Triple H gets hurt. I believe Austin had turned or was in the process of turning when that happened, the 2002 Royal Rumble. And then, yeah, Triple H just comes back. It's a huge pop because it's just great to see, for lack of a cheesier way to put it, guys, people getting back to doing what they love in such a cool way, So
Well, that was also. I was just gonna say that was like the birth of like the My Sacrifice videos, which was a really cool time. But also that Rumble, that 2002 Rumble, go back and watch the lighting of the entrance, and you got like the green lights coming out. That was one of the coolest spectacles I saw for Rumble entrances. Just on that end, like that's what I took away a lot about that Rumble was just how cool it was to enter.
Yeah, it was, again, I just love the Rumble. It always seems like, for whatever reason, not that they ever seem to slough it off a lot of the time, but again, the road to WrestleMania inspires everybody in professional wrestling, I think, and it always seems like WWE just kicks it back up. I'm so excited. If you guys are excited for this year's Rumble, I know you guys are if you're tuned into this Royal Rumble edition of Sunday Brunch. Let us know some of your favorite moments. That's going to be our next topic du conversation this morning to class it up a bit. If you guys have a favorite Royal Rumble moment, we can go on those. We can go on returns. We can go on whatever you love about the classic over-the-top rope battle royal that WWE puts on now twice a year, at least twice during the one pay-per-view. Joe, I'm going to turn to you again. Do you have any favorite moments or any favorite interactions, anything along those lines in Royal Rumble history in your long tenure of watching?
Other than the AJ debut, I mean, one of the biggest ones for me that still stands out, I mean, and it's already been mentioned, but I got to mention it again. I mean, John Cena coming back at Madison Square Garden after being out for injury, and to make such a quick bounce back and to come back the way he did, I mean, that was pretty damn special. Whether you love him or hate him, you had to respect the work that he put in to make that happen. I mean, incredible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Parrish, you started the topic, so I'm going to hop to you next. What do you think?
Well, the funny thing about the Royal Rumble is, like, I remember loving wrestling at a young age, and I was not the most popular kid at a young age because I liked wrestling, and I was a big Shawn Michaels fan. And the very first pay-per-view I ever saw was Royal Rumble 1995. And I remember watching Shawn Michaels come in at number one. I believe he came in during the Bret Hart and Diesel main event. He was beating up Diesel to make sure he was still champion. Owen came in to beat up on Bret because, well, brothers. But I remember that was also the birth of both feet hitting the floor, because that was the one where Bulldog goes to clothesline him over. Only one of Michael's feet touches the floor. He comes back, double axes him over the top rope. And it was cool because the same two guys who started the battle or the Royal Rumble ended it. And it was just one of those, I think, iconic moments. Like, 95 Rumble was not the best one. Not at all. Like, not even close. But it gave you, I think, one of the most iconic moments and ones that we still talk about, and it's now known as the Shawn Michaels rule, because you have to have both feet, and we've seen a lot of attempts to kind of like show creativity, whether it's through Naomi, whether it's through Kofi Kingston, Casey Catanzaro, who I thought did it better than Naomi. But I think it's cool. It brings a different dynamic to the Rumble, and I think over 30 some odd years, if you can do something where you can actually keep it fresh, entertaining, and relevant, I mean, that's pretty cool. But that was my favorite moment, and he also has my favorite elimination as well.
Even just touching on it, though, like, so 95, 96, Michaels goes back-to-back and wins 2 straight Rumbles, and then it was 97, 98, Steve Austin wins 2 straight Rumbles. Could you even just imagine, you talk about the changing wrestling fans and the the more things change, the more they stay the same. Like, could you imagine now if somebody went back to back 2 years in a row, like 4 Rumbles, 2 winners? Sorry to clear that up a bit. I don't know if people would have the patience.
I don't know.
In 2021, patience?
No, it wouldn't happen. One that I wanted to give a quick shout out to as well. Just a little moment, but I love the little interactions that you would just normally never get in a Royal Rumble or in a traditional match, excuse me. I loved in 2018 the first Women's Royal Rumble where Trish Stratus entered. She ran the gauntlet against everybody, pretty well got her stuff in, and then you get the moment between her and Sasha Banks, and they start to go back and forth, and then Trish like literally does Sasha Banks's little, I'm going to do the taunt because I can, and I look good doing it. So she does that and then immediately gets tossed out by Sasha Banks. Like, I just love stuff like that because, you know, from there, yeah, you start to build and you hope that a match comes out. But, and personally, yeah, I want to see Trish and Sasha Banks go at it one-on-one. But getting those little interactions, like at least for me, up until that moment, I had never even fathomed could possibly happen in WWE. Sort of getting even that little taster of what could happen. I love it. And you seem to see it in pretty well every Royal Rumble, you know?
A couple other my favorites I have to make mention, and thankfully, you know, I got to hear this story firsthand going back to 1991. I actually had to look it up so I could get it right. Bushwhacker Luke coming in and just like doing his thing again, throw it out. I mean, fantastic. And I mean, any of the stuff with, oh man, just thinking, I don't know why his name escapes me now.
I thought you looked it up, Joe.
I thought I did look it up too, but while I'm thinking of it, I mean,
I don't have the patience.
Bushwhacker Luke coming in and just doing his thing and just getting thrown out. I mean, little comedy things like that. I mean, are always hilarious, and I always pop for those kind of moments.
I completely agree. Now I'm going to sort of twist the subject a little bit. And Leo, I know we didn't get to you. So I'm going to let you tackle this one a little bit. First, Kyle Shaw hopping into the chat to say, I'd like to see an NXT Rumble on a takeover, mix in some folks from NXT UK as well. Let's maybe combine them a little bit. Who would you like to see from NXT in the Rumble this year? There were a lot of people, and it even seems, I know I said it about the Rumble as a whole earlier, but it seems like this year there are a lot more people from NXT and sort of the developmental side of things that are ready to take that jump. Again, it's really cliche to say, but like you look at like a Rhea Ripley or an Adam Cole or pretty well actually any member of Undisputed, all of them could be ready to hop up to the main roster right around now. So your thoughts on that, and who would you like to see in the Rumble maybe get promoted this year, for lack of a better way to put it?
As for people who could come up, I think Rhea Ripley is a great shout. I think she should have come up already, but she lost to Charlotte Flair. So she got set back a little bit by that, her momentum. I think now would be, I think she just lost like a last woman standing match or something like that. And now is a good time. She's off, like she has an excuse to be off television and could come out in the Rumble. Adam Cole is Adam Cole. Like, he's been ready forever. It's debatable whether or not he even had to go to NXT.
Yeah,
but I'm glad that he did.
Hang on.
All the matches we got were amazing. Pretty much anyone in the Undisputed Era. Finn Balor could come back to the main roster, even though he's champion. It would be cool to see him there.
Yeah.
Yeah. As for moments, I got 3 really quick ones. Paul London's elimination. Getting the clothesline from, I think, Snitsky, doing the weird, like, shooting star bump off the apron to the floor. Taka Michinoku getting thrown over the top rope, and again, doing the shooting star press and hitting face first on the floor. And then Jerry Lawler getting obsessed with it and asking them to replay it like 6 million times. And then when Nia Jax came into the men's Rumble, and I started going like, uh-oh, what's going to happen here? How are they going to get out of this? And then she starts, like, people start bumping for her. And then Orton hits the RKO on her. That was amazing. Because you never see that kind of stuff.
So cool. I bang on there, man. And that was one
Leave
that, like,
Orton to hit a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bad joke.
He did. It wasn't a joke. That's what happened.
I know. I'm trying to gloss it over, Parrish. Jamie Miller hopping into the chat as well. He says Walter. I think Walter would be just so cool to see in there. You know what?
Everybody.
Oh, man, and
Yeah.
I'm going to completely contradict my point from earlier, but you talk about big guys that I would even feasibly believe how is anyone going to stop him now? Walter's that guy.
Yeah.
I fear him. I fear him in ways that I fear very few people, and I fear a lot of professional wrestlers, but I fear Walter. He would be fantastic, and then also got to give a quick shout-out as well to Jamie.
Titus. Oh, yeah.
Well, it wasn't a traditional Royal Rumble.
World slide.
And Saudi was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to be honest. That's got
It's
to be
still on my
about the,
PVR.
when you look at that though, the thing that still gets to me, like even more than the slide, when you see him like go to under the ring and you see the curtain lift, the apron lift up. I mean, he was like inches away from hitting that crosspost. That could have gone like completely the other bad way. That could have gone horribly wrong. Fortunately, he just managed to slide it and he went like, my bad. But I mean, that was inches away from being a disaster.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
Daniel
so
Bryan
fractured.
saying that like he comes in and he does that little 2 seconds like I don't know what to do now. I'm an idiot, and he just gets the hardest punch at Daniel Bryan. He's like, he made his return, I think, that match, and he's like, oh, that was like the stiffest punch because he was so mad he took it out on me.
By the way, earlier the guy that I couldn't think of with the hilarious spots in the Rumble is Santino Marella. I mean, that guy was just comedy gold inside of these matches. That's who I couldn't think of earlier.
That greatest Royal Rumble, I was going to bring up as well. Like Daniel Bryan making his return to a Rumble match in any way, shape, or form. His chest after that.
Raw and strong, man.
Raw hamburger.
Some of the best chops in the business.
Yeah, 100%. And then, you talk about Jerry Lawler with Michinoku and all of them. Like, same sort of thing with Titus World Slide. That might have been my favorite part of the whole thing is Corey Graves and Michael Cole on just going nuts about it. Like neither of them could control themselves for a good 5 minutes after that. It was absolutely fantastic. We're going to keep going on this conversation when we get back on the show, but we've got about 15 minutes left on the show as is. So I want to make sure we get a couple of highlights from Mr. J out of the way. We're going to touch on Poetry of a Promo, which this week so eloquently dives into the hard times that we are all feeling. And then we're going to get right back into some video content with another preview for this week's coming edition, the first ever edition of Thursday Night Quizplex. Stay tuned through the break. We're going to get back to your questions. We're going to get back to comments. We're going to get back to concerns, although hopefully there aren't any in just a couple of seconds.
Appreciate it. The subject is Ric Flair.
Greetings, one and all. Mr. J here with a contractually obligated promotion. Doesn't that feel good? I suppose it does. I'm here to tell you that on January 20th, the last Thursday of the month, Love Wrestling will present Quizplex, a knowledge-based wrestling quiz game to put your intellect to the test. Not mine. It was never a question. So tune in so that I may judge you and find you lacking in knowledge. I've been Mr. J. Ta-ta for now.
Yes, that's right, friends. Thursday Night Quizplex coming up for the very first time. This coming Thursday, we've got our contestants, we've got our rules, we've got everything completely set. The only thing we don't have is you guys, and 3 days in advance of where we are right now. But this Thursday, tune in. We've got a trivia show coming up for the very first time right here on Love Wrestling, lovingly hosted by Zach Ralph, one of the guys who's helped us out so much. I know you guys have watched him do his thing here on Sunday Brunch, as well as read his articles on Love Wrestling as well. A great individual, a great host, and you guys will have to check that out for yourselves this Thursday coming up again on Love Wrestling. And as he mentioned in the previously recorded video, this Monday coming up tomorrow on Love Wrestling as well, on your favorite podcast providers of choice and or the YouTube machine. Poetry of a Promo touches on Dusty Rhodes' famous, Hard Times promo. It's literally my favorite promo of all time, I would have to say. So it was one that I was excited to check out. I hope you guys are too here in the next couple of days. Lots of great stuff coming up as well in the rest of our careers. And in the career of Leo London. Leo, what do you got coming up in the near future here, man? I would have to assume that professional wrestling is still in a bit of an odd spot in Winnipeg. So what have you got to look forward to in the near future in the world of Leo London?
Hopefully, PCW, my home promotion, will be able to return to events shortly. We don't expect to be doing anything before March because just now, just like on Friday, we were finally allowed to have a visitor in our home and buy non-essential items. Like, you weren't allowed to buy anything that wasn't considered essential for the last 2.5 months or something like that.
Holy cow. But hopefully,
so
like
we're
you say,
hoping
sooner
that
rather
things
than later,
loosen enough.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Well, I said, like you said, hopefully it starts loosening up sooner rather than later. I know you had a lot of cool stuff lined up prior to all of the shutdown, as much as, it's weird to talk about prior to the shutdown as though it was like 2 weeks ago. We're almost a year into this.
Yes.
But what can you do now? Before we close it out here, we've got just a couple of minutes left on Sunday Brunch. Of course, we're going to let everybody plug their social media to close it out here on the show. But we've got to let you guys all know that next Sunday will be the first Sunday since the launch of Love Wrestling that we are not featuring a Love Wrestling Sunday Brunch at 11 a.m. next week for the first time ever here on Love Wrestling, as I change over our nice little corner logo there. Parrish and I will be back. We will be predicting pay-per-views. We will be sharing some laughs, sharing some beverages in the first edition of the POS show right here on Love Wrestling. We've got a lot of great stuff lined up for you guys. I know that there are so many sites out there who do pay-per-view predictions. There are so many sites out there who do them well, but we've got some great stuff lined up, including what you are going to see in a minute here. Behold, the Love Wrestling Elite Championship, of course, lovingly powered by the fine folks at Elite Promotional Marketing. That is going to be staying in my home. It's sitting right behind me right now. Of course, we're not going to display it until it's over my shoulder once again. But that'll be the championship that Parrish fails to capture next Sunday right here on Love Wrestling. Parrish, you suck, and that's all I wanted to say.
Well, you know what? Just like all the greats, of course you're going to get mad at me. Because, I mean, if it's anything like the past, I mean, winning that title might be the newly filed. Too sweet.
Okay, you know what? I will say we did have like a different version of the championship in the last 3 months of the WCSN, and neither of us like legitimately won it. This will be the first awarded championship in Spencer Love history, not in Chris Parrish's history, but in predictions. Yes, his first championship opportunity. That'll be happening here on Love Wrestling next Sunday at 11 a.m. unless things change between Parrish and I, because we're both busy guys and sometimes things happen. But
and raging alcoholics.
Hey, that's why we do it after 11. But of course, you guys can stay tuned for that here on Love Wrestling. That'll be coming up next Sunday. However, to close it out here on Sunday Brunch, we're going to go clockwise around here. So, Mighty Joe Morin, where can people keep track of you? Where can people keep track of what you're going to be up to in the next little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. For what I do outside of Love Wrestling, of course, you can find us at TB Talk Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And of course, for Turnbuckle Rewind, you can find us right here on lovewrestling.ca. And like I said, coming up on this week's episode of Rewind, it's going to be a really cool match that I can't wait to talk about with my co-host, Carl Careful, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it.
Absolutely. Parrish, he's got to get interrupted right off the bat. Excuse me. Kyle Shaw, digging the bird motif on the belt. I'm digging it as well, and I'm going to be digging it even more after next Sunday, after I've officially won it. Parrish, where can people keep track of you, my friend?
Well, I got a bird motif for you. I'm just kidding. I love you. But no, you can find me, as you can see it right on my picture. I got my Twitter handle at Chris Parrish. My Instagram at Chris.Parrish. I have a Twitch. I don't know how to use it. I'm creator of the Parachute. You can find me next week here on Love Wrestling, hosting alongside Spencer Love the first ever annual edition of the POS show, where he embarrasses himself for that title. And yeah. Might actually have some news next week, so we'll make sure you don't miss it.
Fair enough. And Leo, first things first, I want to say thanks for joining us on Love Wrestling Sunday Brunch. It's cool to have a guest, and it's always just great to get the opportunity to shoot the shit on pro wrestling, everything outside of it, man. It's always good to see you. I hope things are as well as they seem, and I hope things continue to stay well for you, my friend. If people want to keep track of what you're doing in the next little bit, where can they do so?
It's easiest to find me on Twitter at LeoLondon23, Instagram LeoLondon23, and if you're into wrestling or the card game of Yu-Gi-Oh, I have a YouTube channel, Yu-Gi Leo.
Great branding. I will say that the branding is great, and I will also say that I don't know if I've even got it up here. I've got a green binder kicking around because, admittedly, dude, like, I had a lot of old Yu-Gi-Oh cards sticking around and Pokemon cards as well, and I've started going through them again. You've brought back my interest in not being good at trading card games. I've always been poor at them, but it's nice to at least have another friend who's into them this time.
Awesome.
Thanks again to all of you guys for tuning in to Love Wrestling Sunday Brunch. Once again, I've been your host, Spencer Love. If you want to keep track with the latest that we've got going on here on Love Wrestling, check out your preferred podcast platforms of choice. Check out YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, wherever you may be watching right now, or any of your favorite social medias, including Instagram, any of those sorts of fun things. You can find us pretty well anywhere at Love Wrestling CA. If you're looking for me specifically, I am on Twitter at Spenny Love. I love chatting professional wrestling, just as I've loved doing with these gentlemen today. I will love to do it with you guys. Send me a message, send me a tweet, retweet what we're getting up to, but most attention, stay tuned for what's coming up here in the future on Love Wrestling. We love professional wrestling. It's right there in the title. So stay tuned to what you love about the favorite sport of the four of us, and we'll see you later.